Hey guys, welcome to Solving Quadratic Equations number 2. Hey, remember in number 1 when we solved the quadratic and it was like 2 and negative 3 halves, and then it was 2 and negative 3 halves, and then it was 2 and negative 3 halves, and we solved it 3 different ways? Well, we didn't show you the other way, how to solve it. You can just plug it into Desmos, it'll tell you the answer. Literally just go over here and be like, hey, look, it's at negative 1.5, negative 3.5, and 2. However, none of these will help your mind grow. So we're going to show you what happens when, hey, what if there are no zeros? What happens? So let's dive into this in 3, 2, 1. Before we jump into it, look at the graph. We know for a fact there are no zeros. So if we try to solve when this graph is 0, it's not going to work out. So let's dive into this. So we're going to see that we have this right here. First thing I'd want to do is if I'm going to factor it, so the first one is factor or area model. I'm going to divide by 4. So this is equal to 0. If I divide by 4, because y is 0, when does it hit the ground? When y is 0. I'm going to divide by 4 and I get x squared minus 1 half x. So I'm going to get plus 3 is equal to 0 because y is when it hits the ground, which is at 0. So now I'm going to multiply these. I'm going to have, or I don't need to multiply it. I'm just going to understand that, hey, look, I have x, I have negative 1 half, and I have this plus 3 right here. I don't have to multiply it. I just have to understand, hey, look, what times what equals 3, and what plus what equals negative 1 half. Or I can multiply it. And I get what times what using the AC method. So for example, if this was a 5, it could be like this. All right, AC method. 4 times 12 is 48, and I want to add up to negative 2. So then I look, and I'm like, all right, let me go through all the things. What times what? 1 times 3? No. Well, that's it. I mean, there's no numbers that are going to be nice here. Well, how about this one? It's 48 and negative 2. Well, it has to be a negative number, right? A negative times a negative? Or maybe one of them's positive? Well, if I did 8 and negative, or negative 8 and 6, well, that would make this negative and it doesn't work. And that would make, but that would make this good. And we're like, yeah, that doesn't work. Well, what if I did 8 and 6? Well, then that'd be 14. And that doesn't work. And we keep going in our heads. We're like, all right, what will make this work? Well, guess what? If I have a number and it's positive, either both of them have to be negative because a negative times a negative is a positive, or both of them have to be positive because a positive times a positive is a positive. And these numbers aren't going to work out. Like a negative plus a negative, like they're not going to add up to negative 2 because if this number looks smaller, then that we get into this zone right here, negative 8 and 6. And then it will equal this negative 2. Now let's pause for a second. Guys, does this graph have zeros? No. We're solving this and we already know it doesn't have zeros, so it's going to mess us up. We're not going to be able to do it. Now, in fact, you can solve it with an area model. However, I have not been with imaginary numbers. So we start having imaginary numbers in here, but I'm going to be honest with you. I have not dived into this type of math yet. Growth mindset, guys. But I plan to because I love solving quadratics. And I recently, within the last 10 years, learned about the AC method to help this. And I like this a whole lot better than the other ones. So let's go on to the other ones, okay? So we have way number 2, which is completing the square. So complete square. All right, so I'm going to make it equal to 0 because what does y have to be? 0 when it crashes into the ground. I'm going to divide by 4. And so I get 0 is equal to x squared minus a half x plus 3. I'm going to move this to the other side. So I'm going to minus 3 on both sides. I get negative 3 is equal to x squared minus 1 half x. Now remember, if I have x minus a, I'm going to square it. I would get x minus 2a plus a squared. Just remember that. Now, if you're ever struggling with that, literally just, draw yourself a box and think about it for a couple seconds as you fill it in and get plus a squared, x squared minus ax, and then just add these and you're like, oh yeah, look, equals this. Now, we're going to go back over here. So what does this have to be? Well, this is going to have to be x minus 1/4. And we're going to square it. Is equal to negative 3. But wait, it's not. Because we forgot to add 1/16. 1/4 times 1/4. And so we get negative 3 plus 1/16. Oh, I don't like that as much. Hold up. All right, there we go. I used my calculator and I get negative 2.9375. And now I'm going to find the square root of that. But wait, you can't have the square root of negative 1. So what this turns into is you pull this out, and you still have the 2.9375 right here. And so you're going to have I times 2.9375. And we're going to be adding and subtracting is equal to x minus 1/4. So my answer will be 1/4 plus, well, what's the square root of 2.9375? So I get two different answers. I get 1/4 or 0.25 plus 1.71391. I is the solution, or I get 1/4 minus 1.71391 I. And it's a complex number and we're stuck. We can't do anything. But we solved it. If this had solutions, it would be these. Let's go on. Now, what if we use the quadratic formula? Well, what we're going to do is let's see if I remember it. We have negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Yay, I won a prize. Well, let's bring in our information. We know that a is equal to 4, b is equal to negative 2, and c is equal to 12. So if I bring this up, I'm going to get 2 plus or minus b squared, which is 4, minus 4 times a, 16 times 12, all divided by 2 times 4 is 8. And if I multiply these out, 16 times 12, I think that was 192. 192 minus into this 4 plus or minus, and this 8. And so we get the square root of negative 188, all divided by 8. And we're going to do plus or minus. So right now, I'm going to stop right now. we're going to get the same answer as we did previously. It's going to be an imaginary root, and there's no roots. See this right here? It's going to be minus. So, it's not going to work out for us. So we understand that there's no real numbers right here. I mean, going into it, like we can tell right now, this right here will tell us whether or not the roots are imaginary or not. Same with the top one right here. Like once we see this right here, once we see this negative 2.9375, I should have made that negative 2.94. But once we see that, we understand, hey, can't have negative square roots. It's not possible. It's imaginary. Game over, man. We have an imaginary root. We solve for it. We solve for the imaginary root, but we understand that there's no real roots. All right, guys. That's it for solving quadratics number 2. And I'll catch you guys in class.